to read their college football coverage. Brody, good to see you on Saturday, man. Thank you for the feedback on Peaches and Herb.
Absolutely. I mean, I just appreciated that T-Bob was on Twitter saying that you were colluding when T-Bob went up to me and said, even if you don't like mine as much, vote for me.
Golly, man.
I mean,
obviously was your platform. This is the fourth person that has said this.
Everybody is just coming at me today.
Well, you see where that loyalty lies.
No, look, man, it's fine. Like Jesus, if this is my burden to bear, just this constant criticism and taking these barbs, I will turn the other cheek. So I'll just take it, man. This is my cross to bear. I get it. It's,
It's easy. It's easy.
Another man who was not appreciated by his contemporaries, but I would say he aged pretty well. Okay, so
it's a hell of a comparison.
I'm in good company.
Brody, what's our stress meter if you're an LSU fan this morning of seeing that the starting quarterback joins the list of absentees over the weekend?
Pretty small. I mean, I understand. Like, I don't blame somebody for being worried about it when you have so many defensive players out. You got now your quarterback's out. But, I mean, from what I understand, he got hit in a practice when he shouldn't have, got a little banged up. And it's just not something they're gonna rush the starting quarterback back from when you don't need to. I really don't think that's anything to really worry about. I imagine he's back sooner than later.
So let's stay on the injuries because that's been the camp here. That's been the camp story early on of fall. I understand Chasson, I understand Fulton. To a degree, I understand Lawrence last week with the foot and what he was dealing with last week, and even now Burrow. I mean, your quarterback, I heard the same thing you did, just a practice hit that he should be okay. If they play today, the constant company line, if they were to play this Saturday, he'd be good to go. But the one that concerns me the most is Delpit. Have you heard anything on Grant Delpit and why he's continuing to miss these workouts?
Yeah, I'm not sure I want to get. I'm not sure I'm confident enough to get into a specific injury necessarily. But yeah, I mean, his is the one that's probably going to take actually a little while to recover from, and it's something that's kind of going to linger around for a while. I mean, they seem optimistic he'll be ready for week 1, but I don't think they're 100% on that by any means. So I think that's the only one you really have to kind of keep an eye on. But it's definitely not like a major injury. It's just something that might take a little bit.
So when you hear about like the other 24 players being out or whatever was at practice last week, and then you hear about Kaelon, Christian Fulton, and others not practicing as well, you're not too concerned with those other names?
No, those other names, I mean, from what I understand, are all things that they could be back by the end of this week, maybe. I mean, I think those ones are, like LSU says, they're things that, hey, if it was today, they could play, but they're veteran guys. Let's just hold them out for a few days.
What are you hearing about the offensive line, Brody? Obviously, that's the play. Everybody's talking about the offensive line, right? Because we kind of think how they do will determine how the team does. They were effusive in their praise in the first week. Maybe a little less so coming out of that scrimmage. Where do you think this O-line's currently at?
Yeah, I think you just kind of summarized the same things I've been hearing. That I think they really have been really impressed with the growth from Adeculus and Sadiq Charles and whatnot, but the defensive line definitely dominated that scrimmage from, I think, what all of us have heard. And, I mean, granted, it's worth mentioning that I would love to go back and do a study of, like, every team's scrimmages over the course of fall camp. And I think historically the defense is going to win the overwhelming majority of those in a week 1 scrimmage. So I don't want to overreact to anything like that, but it does sound like that the defensive front really won that battle. It sounds like a Race Thornton had a really good day, which, I don't know specifically who he was lined up against. I won't pretend I do, but you would imagine that's on the tackles. So I think this kind of – I mean, that's the thing. We all heard this optimism and whatnot, but we also knew it's not like LSU's suddenly going to be one of the top offensive lines in the SEC. Yeah. I think you're just looking for some improvement there. So I think I'm just taking it all with a grain of salt right now.
Brody Miller of The Athletic joining us here, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge, down in New Orleans on 100.3, 94.7 ESPN Alexandria. We spent the entire offseason talking about the addition of Joe Brady and what the offense was going to look like. Now that you've had more than a week to see them on the field working out in small windows, what do you think?
Let's not pretend I see too much there. But,
right.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like I wish – that is kind of the one disappointing thing about Joe Burrow missing that scrimmage is I would have liked to know how he did with the new offense in a live scrimmage against this defense. I think that's the most interesting thing here. But I think one thing that's going to be really interesting to follow, and it's kind of some things I've heard that are changing at camp is, I mean, Justin Jefferson got targeted, 96, 94 times last year, and I think the second most was, in the 40s. I think one of the things that you're hearing is definitely changing, and I really am excited to see it in the game, is how much that part changes, because you hear different reasons for why that was. Some of it might just being a new quarterback finding his guy trust. A lot of it might be what Jerry Sullivan kind of liked to do with his receivers. I think that's probably a big part of it. I'm really interested to see how much those targets get divvied up, especially with people like Chase and Marshall gaining more trust and whatnot. I'm really interested to see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, I think you're in terms of just other things that have come up with this offense, it really does sound like John Emery, and Davis Price both have chances to be, pretty big players for this team. Sounds like Emery's doing some big things, but yeah, I think overall, though, it's been the same company lines through everything, right?
Back to the wide receivers, Jefferson and Marshall and Chase are obviously their top three, but that move of Jefferson inside, I guess, does that put him in the top three? Is that how he gets on the field with the emergence of Marshall now that he's healthy, and Jamar Chase seems like he is the all-season story?
Yeah, absolutely. I just to add on to this, I heard that Chase was, if you're looking for offensive storylines from that scrimmage, I heard Chase was the absolute star offensively there. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think that means like Jefferson got like moved. Like I don't think in modern football anymore the slot is the third guy. It just means that's just. And I think nowadays that's where you can find a lot of the most openings on a defense.
Yeah.
Everything I've gathered, I think Jefferson is still absolutely the best of those receivers right now. It's just, I think you're going to get the most value out of those three guys on the field if you have Chase and Marshall, like you said, on the outside. And Jefferson's a really quick, smart, explosive route runner. So he is kind of a perfect fit for that slot, and you almost wonder why it didn't happen before. And obviously we'll see in the game. So much of this is just going off what we're hearing and occasionally seeing. But I definitely think this is just a way to get the best out of everybody involved.
And it seems like Brady wants his guys to be pretty versatile. I mean, in the offseason, he told us that all the receivers are going to know all spots. So I don't think that they're just locking guys into the X, the Y, or the Z here on this offense.
It's good. I mean, that was one of the problems last year. Became too predictable. My bad, Brody. That was bad radio. Talking to Brody Miller here.
Ask the guest a question and the co-host answer.
Yep. My bad. Everybody chill out, okay?
It's a rough weekend
it's
for
Monday.
T-Bob.
Yeah. Monday. Not a rough weekend. I discovered one of my favorite board games of all time, which I've already ordered at Little Horse, so it actually was a great weekend.
We get
Brody,
it, bro. We get it.
I know. I had to make myself feel better.
We get it.
Brody, we are interviewing you, so let's talk to you. Myles Brennan.
Oh, come on now.
Obviously, with Joe Burrow going down, Myles Brennan steps in. I've been banging the Brennan drum a bit that I think you have a really good backup here behind Burrow. Like I get that it's Burrow's team, but how did Brennan look? Like from what you're hearing, did it seem like he kind of has taken that step, that improvement that you wanted to see from him in the offseason?
I feel like it's kind of yes and no. I mean, like we said, the defense did really win that, and a lot of that was the defensive line getting in the backfield. I mean, he completed 8 of 13, but I mean, there were also I don't know if he necessarily looked fantastic in the scrimmage or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, I think the difference isn't that I think there's a big gap between Burrow and Brennan, but I also think on the other hand they would feel much more confident going with Brennan now than they did in the game last year. I think I don't think there's any even close of a real competition or anything like that there. Not that anyone's claiming there is, but I think that if they run Burrow and say he gets hurt, at least you wouldn't mind putting Brennan in the game. I mean, I remember he admitted to me at the bowl game last year. He's like, back when he was 180 pounds or so, he's like, I know for a fact that if I took a hit from an SEC defensive lineman, like, I don't know if I'd be able to get up. Like he at least has the self-awareness to admit that. So I think that's the big thing that he probably put on about 25, maybe even 30 pounds. So, and I just think a lot of with him, we know he throws a great football. Does he have the processing and mental aspects of this new offense?
I got 45 seconds. What are you hearing on Peter Parrish?
I think he's got a long way to go, and I think if it's up to them, I think he's fine. I think he's a playmaker. I think he can do things. I just think as a overall, field general quarterback, he's got a ways to go. But also, if it's up to them, he won't have to play for another at least 2 seasons. So I don't think it's
absolutely. I mean, it's good to finally see LSU get a line of quarterbacks where classification, you can redshirt guys and have them ready to play 2-3 years into the system. Brody, good to see you this weekend, man. Thanks for the time this morning.